we have a special guest for a few minutes, a good friend of mine, John Loyack. He is the Vice President of Global Business Services for the state of EDPNC, the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina. A few years ago, they spun off commerce into a separate entity, which is run by Chris Chung, also a good friend of mine. He's the CEO. And in his role at VP of Global Business Services, Chris and John and his team work with Secretary Copeland to help grow and support business. And John Loyack basically oversees the International Trade Office. He oversees all of the economic development regional partnerships, and he's in charge of a program called Business Link, which is the support for small business. He and I have been working closely together to support many of the small businesses as we fight this economic war around Morrisville, the Triangle, and the state of North Carolina. So he's really in the front lines, and I'm going to hand it over. I want to thank John for taking time out of his very busy schedule. He's working with Governor Cooper, Secretary Copeland, and Chris to make sure that we're not only playing defense to keep these businesses going and help entrepreneurs, but also recruiting companies as we still try to do that in North Carolina. So John, thank you for making time. We're going to hand it over for you for a few minutes to just talk a little bit about business in the new normal and what you can do to help our startup and entrepreneurial community. So I hand it over to our distinguished guest from the government, John Loyack. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. You know, famous last words, right? I'm from the government and I'm here to help. But no, it's great to be here, everyone. And I will say, I just wanted to provide, I asked Steve for a few minutes to come in and talk with you all about some of the resources that are out there. My team is working remotely, and we have been for the last 6 weeks, but we are supporting businesses the way that we always have. I'd say that the startup community and small businesses in general are typically ones who open up the paper in the morning and read about, you know, the multi-million-dollar packages that might go to some of the large companies that are expanding, and they wonder, what's the state doing for me? And so I wanted to kind of share a little bit about the types of things we're doing, in particular, what we're doing to help businesses get back online, ready to go, and ready to expand as quickly as possible. First thing I want to do, and I always do this when I join calls like this, I wanted to share that primary piece of information that I would like to share with all of you is a 1-800 number. This is 1-800-228-8443. That's our Business Link line. The Business Link team is a team that's doing one-on-one business consults typically with startups. They're talking about regulatory requirements. They're talking about tax issues, licensing stipulations, any variety of issues. And so for those of you who are working with a startup here in the area, and I worked with a startup going back to 2002 with a company called Mercury MD. We had this fantastic little run, and I started working at the state. But as I discovered some of the resources that are available through the state, I really wished I had contacted folks earlier. And so I wanted you all to have that number and know that these are a group of people who can answer literally any question that comes your way. One of the predominant issues that we are running into is the question of access to capital, access to funding in general, just relief funding. And so if anyone is out there who has been struggling to get through the PPP process, for example, I'd recommend you call that 1-800 number or reach out to another member of our team. We're the ones who are tracking this for businesses statewide, helping them understand what types of things are in place, what banks are working with new clients, what community banks are now engaged, and that sort of thing. Now, that'll take care of the great gold rush that is PPP, but even outside of that, there's a lot of things going on. Many of you may not know there's actually an emergency bridge loan program that's going on right now, run by an organization called the Golden Leaf Foundation. Golden Leaf has been working over almost the last month on a project with 10 different nonprofit lenders in the state to provide bridge loans to businesses. When the program first launched, I believe it was March 24th. It launched with the original funding for that was $15 million. What they were offering was loans up to $50,000. These were just basic bridge loans to hold people over until some of the SBA funding came through or other things. 15 million was the total amount of funding that they had at the time. But again, emergency funding, just wanted to get it out to people quickly. 0% interest over the first 6 months, 0 payments over the first 6 months. So for folks who are waiting for the SBA to come through with some of their emergency relief, this was a great option. In 48 hours, the 15 million was completely committed to. Now, I mentioned that, but I wanted to share that the North Carolina General Assembly is now looking at providing additional funding to that group. And so our hope is that could be as soon as next week. It's been approved by the House. The House has approved 75 million that they would do as a part of that program. Over on the Senate side, they were looking at 125. When that agreement is struck, that'll be passed over to the governor. And when the governor signs it, it's something that that funding and that Golden Leaf organization will be ready to go up and running again. And Steve, I'll provide that URL out to you so that we can get it out to this group. Bottom line is there's some more bridge loan opportunities that are coming. And so again, going back to that 1-800 number, 1-800-228-8443, that's a team who's keeping their finger on the pulse of some of these opportunities. There's a number of different things that you all can lean on us for as well. You know, for businesses who are looking to get up and running, one of the things that we're doing now is consulting with businesses on how to test employees as they come back. What type of surface disinfectants is the EPA recommending in order to combat something like COVID? What are the best practices that businesses will need to do? We've got posters from the CDC that can be printed and put up around the workplace so that you can make sure that your employees are doing the types of things that they'll need to do. What happens if somebody does come in and does test positive? There's a checklist of things that a business can go through to make sure that they're keeping the rest of their staff as healthy and dealing with the situation as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So there's a lot of different things that are available out there. We're doing a lot of work with companies that have shifted to the world of personal protection equipment as well. And for some of the startups on the call, you may think, okay, personal protection equipment, John, why is that of any relevance to us? Many of you may know a company that was Filter-Ease. I believe they're now Second Nature. Second Nature has made the pivot to personal protection equipment. And we're in place to help organizations like theirs to create their prototypes, to find the materials they need, answer all kinds of supply chain connections, testing materials that they come up with, and then helping them sell their product as well. We act as a link, whether that be to the North Carolina Department of Emergency Management, Health and Human Services, some of the federal partners like FEMA, the military, and others. If you want to sell product here in North Carolina, we've got people leaning on us for help with that too. Final point I would make, Steve, and this is something that I'm happy to have further conversations with folks as we move on. We have had some federal partners come to us to say, what are the types of things you all would do if we were able to provide some additional funding? And one of the things that we are working on is a concept of economic gardening. Economic gardening is something that is essentially, it's something that's relatively new to North Carolina, but this is a program focused on second stage companies. So companies that are maybe about $1 million in sales or over $1 million in sales, 10 employees to 50 employees. So not large, small companies, but ones who are entering into that second stage. And this is a research project that we're going to be sponsoring for a number of companies throughout the state. So folks who feel that they've got the potential for sustained growth, folks who are ready to make that next step and want someone to come in and do a little bit of strategic research, identify some new markets, identify some new customers, that sort of thing. And we're hoping to launch that program as well. So Steve, those are just a few of the things that we're working on. I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk with everybody today. I just wanted to share a little bit of information about the resources that are in place to help businesses like the folks on this line today.
Well, John, we thank you so much. And we thank you and the governor, Secretary Copeland, and Chris Chung, and all of the EDPNC team for, we know you're working long hours and it's tough, but we thank you. And John and I are going to be working on doing some more things with the business community, maybe even bringing Tom Stitt from the SBA. So stay tuned, and this will be recorded and we're going to send that out to this group. But John, thank you for being with us today.